Folks, welcome to episode 3 of the Cohesive Chemistry podcast. My name's Ollie Canning. I am an IB chemistry and TOK teacher. And in this podcast, I'm hoping to speak to some of the big names in the IB chemistry world to learn a bit from their experience and particular areas of expertise. Apologies for my voice, which is a little bit up and down at the moment. I have no good stories to explain why, but I will point the finger at my 18-month-old on this occasion. This week's guest needs no introduction, but I will give him an introduction anyway. He's been teaching for 25 years, has taught in 11 different countries, and is the original gangster in the IB chemistry YouTube world with 71,000 subscribers and upwards of 20 million views. I've never spoken to him before today, but I feel like I know his voice intimately. Richard Thornley, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how you doing, Ollie? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, thanks very much for making the time.
No
Richard, you've worked in a bunch of different countries there. Can you take me back to the beginning and how you actually got into teaching in the first place?
So getting into chemistry, I was completely clueless. I was the first in my family to get a degree. And so how did I choose chemistry? It was a conversation with my mum that lasted maybe 30 seconds. You like the chemistry teacher, you seem to enjoy it, you should do it. I mean, there was no counsellor, I had to fill in everything by hand. So that was just utterly random. And then to become a teacher, the girl I was dating was a year younger than me at university. So I had to do one more year, and none of this is covering me with glory. I appreciate that. And so I asked around, what's the easiest course you could do? I didn't want to work in a pub for a year. And I said, teaching or masters? I said, teaching's easy. It was like the hardest year of my life. I'm just not a natural teacher. I can do it now, but it took me so long. It was the hardest year of my life. And of course, after I graduated, she dumped me. So I'm stuck with being a chemistry teacher. She claimed that she was dumped me for the Prince of Gabon. And this is kind of pre-internet. And so it's only years later when I worked at the United Nations School, I actually met like the Gabonese ambassador's daughter. And I was like, hey, come over here. Tell me about this Lothario. There is no royal family of Gabon. She completely, it was on the spur of the moment lie. So yeah, not very auspicious start, not at all. And I didn't have the kind of...
No, but
the will to just jump to another job. I felt I was stuck with it. I'll try and make it work.
Fair, yeah. I mean, not quite the happy endings to the romantic side, but I guess you've been teaching for 25 years now, so it started something for you.
It worked out, yeah. It took me, most new teachers are a liability for 3 years, but I think I was up there maybe 5, 6 or 7 years. It took me a while. But my discipline for the kids isn't my strong suit. And so, because I can't understand why everyone isn't here to learn and love chemistry, because I used to. And so gradually it dawns on you the little tricks and tips to get the kids on board. But yeah, that's how it all started. It had hair.
So I wonder, in those early days, you said it took several years to kind of develop any kind of competence in the classroom. What were the kind of things that helped you get better? Who did you learn from?
Well, the thing is, I did it the hard way, not the clever way. What I should have done is I should have sat in on pretty much any other teacher and took notes on just the basics of how to teach. And then I should have asked them to come in, no harm, no foul. Can you just come in and watch me and tell me what I'm doing wrong? But I didn't do enough of that. I didn't do much of that at all. I was, I think pride got in the way a bit. I thought, I'm going to do this on my own. And so, a lot of children suffered as I tried to learn. So hopefully the videos kind of pay back to the world a little bit like that. But yeah, that was my big mistake. And I should have read Rosenstein. What is it? It's only 10 sentences. Rosenstein's Principles of Education. That would have really helped. Yeah. Maybe that wasn't around back then. But just 10 ways how you can become a better teacher. Each one's a winner.
Yeah, I think that. And the first IB school I taught in, I was the only IB chemistry teacher. So it's difficult to get better when you don't have people around you. And I think I kind of realized basically this year that there is, for example, the IB Facebook groups or the IB programs and exchange communities are really helpful places to go so that you can ask questions, you can check in with people and build a bit of a network. Because without it, it's a real slow learning curve, I think.
I didn't have anyone to explain stuff to me that I didn't understand. Yeah, because there was no Skype. A phone call cost you like $1 a minute. It was just a different world back then. I tell the kids,
Yeah.
in my first 5 years of teaching, I had no emails, no Manage Back, no Google Classroom, no LAC, no Maya Learning. And they're like, tell us more about those golden years. I'm like, oh. So
Yeah,
it's useful
before the
stuff
television
now.
was invented.
we had big monitors, but I come in and they're wearing like 90s rock band T-shirts and what you're listening to, and it's Tears for Fears and stuff like that. They kind of those days they never lived for. They miss them. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, a different time, I guess. And without all the tech, you kind of forget that things like Facebook weren't around 25 years ago, nor even easy ways to communicate with people, which must have made it difficult. Particularly, I mean, you were in a department with a couple of other people.
So the first time I taught IB Chem, I think it might have been, I did 2 years at Watford, and then I just on the spur of the moment, I applied to a school in New York, and I showed up to the interview, and it was in the wrong part of the Guardian, and so no one else showed up, and the guy couldn't go back empty-handed. So, I mean, why he'd hire someone? I'd never taught full-time. I was part-time for 2 years, and so he had to take me back to New York with him. And so it's very different, Watford to New York. You know, it was very fast paced. And I got there, I'm the chemistry teacher. I know what's going on. I've never even taught a year of chemistry. Yeah. Fun times. I wouldn't change it for the world though.
Yeah, I think in hindsight that it's obviously a valuable experience, and you grow a lot in those moments. But it's like you said, I certainly feel like my first year of teaching, I did a real disservice to the students, kids who were getting kind of 3s and 4s who should really or would now be getting 6s and 7s, no question.
Yeah. And give the new teachers maybe 80% time, and that other 20% send them off to another school, do some kind of exchange. Yeah, a lot of kids are missing out on a lot of stuff by not doing that. You should start that company.
Yeah. It's well, I suppose that's where your videos and stuff come in. You can watch how people explain things, for example. That stuff like that is a little bit more accessible, but that you didn't have that kind of benefit when you were starting teaching, I don't think.
No, just a well-thumbed textbook. That was it. And I survived this far. I wonder in 30 years' time what it's going to be like. I can't even imagine it. I can't imagine the jump I've been through. The next 30 years, it's going to be so different.
Yeah, AI is something to kind of watch with a bit of curiosity in the coming years. I guess it's still new, and I'm not sure. I'm not really committing any thinking to it at the moment because I'm waiting for other more intelligent people to do that and then tell me how best to use it. But for now, I'm just going to keep doing what I normally do.
Yeah, my father's chemistry, my grandfather's chemistry, that's pretty much the same course. I was thinking for like the history teachers, they moved to China, now you got to learn Chinese history, you know? Whoa, I moved to China. It's the same old. So I'm stuck in quite a rut in that respect because it's the same as it's always been. So I to make my life a bit more exciting, I travel around to all these different countries. So I use that to spice it up and get good at the
and you've done a few of that.
I can do.
I'll just list those countries for people out of interest: UK, USA, Lebanon, Spain, Turkey, Thailand, Russia, Czech Republic, Italy, Hungary. That's quite a list you've got there.
Yeah. Well, if you teach IB chemistry and you can actually do it, I can now, world's your oyster. There's only like 16 of us on the planet. So you can just take off and fly around. It's got to the stage now that I don't apply for jobs. People call me. Not because I'm particularly wonderful, but because there's so few of us.
What about some of your good failures in those early years? Any specific examples where you kind of learned something or something went horrendously wrong?
So after maybe 3 weeks, I learned that if you're going to do the oxidation of ethanol to ethanoic acid, you should put anti-bumping granules in. So I was just unlucky. Normally the thing won't explode, but no one had done any experiments. I got all this new stuff out the cupboard. I put it all in. And my abiding memory is I asked the other chemistry teacher, is this right? Are you sure this is right? Can you help me? And she actually looked down the reflux as it was being heated, and then it did blow up. It blew up a few minutes later. So I'm like, I don't think I can trust this person. And so that's why I always remember it's orange to green. They put in the orange stuff and the ceiling had a massive splat of green on it. And then I've only had to evacuate the class twice in 30 years of teaching chemistry, 25 of IB. And that was it. I filled the room with ethanol So it just smelt like a pub car park. Just it stunk of digested ethanol. Yeah, I got called in.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
not quite the learning environment you want, that smell.
The other, I tried to, so chemistry is a wheel, and I'm hoping to hold on until knowledge-based learning comes back again. It's kind of moved away from that a little bit. So the flipping the classroom was a big thing 15 years ago, where the kids learn stuff at home from videos and books, and they come in and do their homework. And so I thought I'd give that a go. And after 4 weeks, literally the kids were begging me, please make this stop. This is so horrible. And I thought, why am I doing this? I enjoy teaching. I'm reasonably good at it. Why would they learn stuff at home? And so the flipping classroom, actually up until recently, I just checked. If you typed flipping failure into Google, I was the first hit. And that's never going to be good.
Oh, really?
Even if it was an anonymous Google browser, it didn't know it was me, that I like to look, things to do with chemistry. Yeah, I'm not on the front page anymore, but that's not good.
Yeah, fair enough. And you learn, I mean, the flipping classroom I have tried in probably 5-6 years ago, because it was I guess came round as a bit of a fad again, but actually the limitation, unless you have a really good system where all students are going to do exactly what you tell them, if you've got 1 or 2 kids coming back to class who haven't done it, then the whole thing is just obliterated, really.
So I'd sit down and the kids would be ready to lesson. I'm like, no. I'm not teaching. I'm just going to wander around and kind of check your homework and stuff. I'm like, this is the flipped classroom. I'm like, yeah, did you do it? No. I'm like, so that I failed at it. I mean, I'm sure some people could get it to work. I just didn't enjoy it. And I like teaching. I did it with stoichiometry. I feel like I'm quite good at stoichiometry.
Yeah.
So
do it yourself, right?
Do it myself. Hey, what am I going to do? Sit there and run around? That was no fun. Anyway.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, let's get into YouTube, because I think if people are kind of watching or listening to this, your name is kind of synonymous with IB Chemistry on YouTube. Where did that start, and why did it start?
So again, I fell into it. I was working at a school, the world's first IB school. There's 12 of them. So the United Nations School in New York, actually, with the world's first IB biology teacher. So really? Kind of impressive, So the physics teacher, worked with Adam Savage from the Mythbusters. The biology teacher was one of the guys who discovered that the brain can kind of grow back. A few years ago they said the brain can never regrow. He kind of co-discovered and co-proved that. And the biology teacher had been an explorer in the Antarctic, and then this idiot me come along, and I'm like, I thought, oh my God. Everyone here is so high achieving, and so it was really intimidating. And so what happened is they overhired, and so it was a big secret. We were all on 80%, so we're all on 80% pretty much, and we just kept our mouths shut. And then the new director came in, and he checked, and he's like, "Hold on, why is there so many bloody science teachers?" And so he said, "You've got to do something. You've got to do something with this 20%." And so we racked our brains, and they said, "Oh, we'll just make some videos." And so 5 or 6 of us were supposed to do it, and only 2 of us did, and it kind of took off from there. So it just took off from that. I was quite lucky in the sense that I had the first mover advantage. There was a Khan Academy chemistry, but Khan he thinks fluorine is FL. He gets confused with where his protons go, and his arrows are wrong. His chemistry then was just not good. In fact, I'd use it to review, and we'd find all the mistakes in his videos. So I managed to kind of slip in. There was a tiny niche for IB chemistry, and I slipped in. And after 50 videos, no one cared. So I emailed every school that did IB one long weekend, and then it slowly ticked up off of the asymptote of 0, and then just crept up from there. So that's how it started.
Yeah, because you've now got, I think, 678 videos. I think is what I.
Yeah, it was like another job. Some of them take couple of hours, and some of them take like 3 years, and they're kind of percolating away. I didn't realize I'm a little bit of a completionist as well. So once you kind of get 51%, you think, oh, I'll do another one. And I did enjoy most of them, not all of them. I'd show up to work on Saturday, and I'd put Van Halen on the massive speakers at school, and the whole room was shaking. And then I'd do my kind of animations and my drawings, and I got some positive feedback, just enough to keep me going, just enough.
Yeah.
The $6 that I make a day is the reason the kids ask, why do you still do this if you've got this little following on YouTube? It's like $6 a day. It doesn't even buy me a cent.
Yeah, you're in it for the money.
All teachers are in it for the money. Yeah, that's true.
That's the nature of our game, isn't it? We're all chasing dollars. What's your process for making a video? Maybe it's probably changed over the years a bit. How do you plan a good explanation? Because I think your videos are good explanations, which is part of the reason, as well as the kind of humor and levity that they've become so popular.
I think what I do, because I've taught it so often, it's a little bit of a running joke in the class. So I'll ask a question and I just under my breath I'll go wrong, like that. And they're like, what did you say? I said, you're just going to get it wrong. And I'm like, just prove to me that I'm a jerk. Prove to me I'm just some jerk up here. Then they'll get it wrong. And I go, I knew you'd get that wrong. You know, if KC, the only thing that changes is temperature, and I double the concentration. Oh, if KC doubles, no, so stuff like that. And so if you've done that long enough, the model, the simulation I've got in my head of an IB kid is really quite good. So I can, and just by evolution, I've kind of honed in on kind of the most efficient ways to teach these things. If I listen to the kids' feedback and things like that, and they do well on a test, bad on a test. What I used to have for equilibrium, I just taught a little bit of that, is I had a tiny bell, and when they'd make a mistake with the equilibrium, I'd say, if you double the reactants and then you wait for equilibrium to be reestablished, which is faster, the reverse or the forward, nothing changes at equilibrium. And so I ring this bell and I get really angry, and I came in one day and someone had stamped that bell flat into like a sheet of graphite, right? Because I'd angered them so much at it, and I threw it away. And I'm thinking, actually, that bell was more fun now. It was stamped flat. It was more fun. So I just if there's mistakes I know they're going to make, sometimes I write the mistake under the board eraser. I just put, when they make the mistake, I just take the board eraser and go, no, I knew you'd do that. So that's kind of my process. Yeah, it's experience. And I think that's what sets me apart from Khan Academy and his millions of dollars in Google sponsorship, is that his process is he learns the chemistry from chemistry teachers. This is what I've read. And then he just teaches it himself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he's done a lot of good work.
Experience of...
Yeah, but that's not optimum, I think. Excuse me.
Yeah, fair enough. And interestingly, do you know the website CamGuide?
.co.uk, that one, yeah? Mm-hmm.
.co.uk. I had a little email exchange with Jim Clark, who wrote it, who said almost exactly what you said. When he's trying to write a good explanation, he sat next to a kind of made up or ghost IB student, and he can just see the things that they are going to misunderstand. So I'm going to rephrase it. I'm going to clarify. I guess that's part of the reason experience makes you a better teacher, because you know what things people tend to misunderstand or get wrong frequently. Yeah. And you can address that.
Experience. I don't think I've ever found a mistake on chemguide.co.uk.
Yeah.
So I think it might be near perfect. I'm using the new cognitive stuff, and it's new, and quite often I can find problems that they have with it. ChemGuide might be as close to perfection as possible.
Yeah,
really
he mentioned that I think during the pandemic, the website was getting up to 2 million views a month.
Well earned.
Yeah. The other interesting thing from our kind of brief conversation, you know how the text is all kind of centralized down the middle of the page.
Yeah.
Again, for clarity only, shorter line lengths means things are easier to digest. Yeah. So whatever browser you open it on, it's a kind of a little thin column, which it kind of, now he's mentioned that, is a real advantage of reading the website. You don't just get huge blocks of text everywhere. Very kind of clear, concise, consistent. I thought it was quite interesting from a master of explanations.
Color. Yeah, if I see the blue of Pepsi or the red of Coke, and I kind of get a little, I can trust this. I don't have to second guess myself. Interesting. Where's he?
That's it. Yeah, it's kind of a branding thing, isn't it? Right? It's
he's got a colour.
This is my brand. It's my promise to you. If you come on this website, you're going to understand something. It's super clear. Yeah, it's really interesting. The other thing I think that's great about your...
Sorry.
I think he's down the southwest of the UK.
Oh, Brit. Okay.
Your videos, you use that kind of, I don't know what best to describe as a kind of a computer game platform. I guess probably that's more of a recent development. What is that, is my first question.
Well, so it's a quite a flexible video game called Gary's Mod. A guy called Gary made it. He tweeted once about me, just one word, so that made me happy. And that gave me more credibility with the kids than anything else. One word. So I think it was awesome or great or interesting or something. So what it is, it's quite a flexible platform. If you want to have like a pink elephant floating in the sky with protons orbiting it, you can do it. So I spent way too much time getting way too good at that. I just found myself when I was... Chemistry's hard to love. That's like the little secret. I've taught all the sciences. I think chemistry can be a little hard to love. It's quite abstract. I keep pointing to the periodic table. These kids have never seen sulfur or tantalum or something. And so I thought, I got to have something here. The content's good, but I got to have a little kind of Easter egg, a little treat or something like that for myself, making it as much as the kids watching it. And it kind of sprung out from that. And one of the teachers I used to work with looks just like the character that I try to kill in a different way every time. So I've killed him like
Dr. Atkinson.
200. He's a real person. He shows up in one video in real life. He's a real person.
Yes.
He's just a nice guy. I used to teach TOK, IB coordinator. So I'm kind of running out of ways to kill him. So I used to ask him for permission. I'd show him the videos before, but he's many schools away now. He only refused one, which is why I tried to inflate him with methane for the ideal gas, and he'd do a massive fart and launch into space. He said, probably not that one, Rich. Fair enough.
So he's happy to be ripped apart by a shark, but he draws the line at methane.
Well, I haven't asked him for 15 years, for 10 years, because I haven't seen him, but yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I guess we've all got a limit somewhere, don't we? What do you feel like making the videos has had an impact on your classroom teaching and your explanations in the classroom?
I was thinking about that. I don't really think it has. I don't really think it's... I read the comments on the videos, and some of them are helpful. Some of them are just downright rude for some of them. Some of them I've had to ban. For example, I mentioned that if I had a daughter, I'd call her Lattice, because that's like lattice, the lattice energy.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
And then someone created a YouTube channel named after my fake daughter, and then started to spam my videos with very inappropriate material from my fake daughter. So that's just weird.
Yeah, some people have too much time on their hands, maybe.
So I banned that. But I use the channel if I'm feeling a little bit lazy, or I feel like the video's better than what I've done. Sometimes the kids will pay attention to me on the video more than in real life, which is a little dispiriting.
Yeah.
I put the video on, they're quiet and they're kind of mesmerised by TV, but the real thing dancing and jumping around trying to get their attention, sometimes that doesn't work. I have offloaded cognitively some of the, I can never remember those bloody equations for the lithium batteries in option C and the redox for the rechargeable. So I've offloaded that to the videos. So I just show those.
Yeah.
We have the conversation. I don't understand them. Sorry, I don't learn them. Why should we have to learn them if you haven't learned them? Because you're having a test. I'm not having a test. So I've offloaded some cognitive capacity to my younger, smarter self. That's what I've done.
Yeah.
I know I can teach myself.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, it is what it is.
You're learning from yourself each year when you come back to those slightly tricky bits of the course.
Yeah. To do with the protic and aprotic solvents with SM1, SM2. Give me a break. I just tell them, watch the video. Yeah, fortunately. Well, the books were kind of confusing. The answer scheme was confusing. I barely understood it, but I kind of put it together. That one took me maybe 6 months to do, just to try and understand it. Emailing friends and asking what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think it's an example of a kind of syllabus point that needs so much understanding and explanation to make it valid. It's kind of like, well, just try and memorize it. If not, don't waste your cognitive space because there's other more important things.
And the reasons they gave, I could think of contrary reasons, which are just as valid. It's gone now. I haven't started a new syllabus yet, actually.
Yeah.
And the guy next door to me is doing it, and I just been to the conference, and so I was curious. Are we going through the book, or are we doing it like the old days? And most people at the conference said they're pretty much doing it the old way, and trying a little bit to follow the book, but not too much.
Yeah, well, I think that's valid, and I think that's probably it's one nice thing about the new curriculum is that it is flexible. Like you don't you can just do what you've been doing before, maybe tweak the odd syllabus point that's gone or arrived, but that's a perfectly valid option. I think unless you've got time to think about it, that's an easy place to start. Do that, see how it goes, and then you can start tinkering as the kind of years go on.
I think
you'll be picking up that course next year.
Yeah. I think I could kind of retool to teach in this new kind of style, but my teaching would go down for sure, and then it would go up. And I'm wondering how far up it will go. Would it go up and beyond, or would it go up to where it was, and so it was all a wash? So I don't think I'm going to take that risk. I think I'm just going to. I've got the little workbooks that I like and change those. I think that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you're kind of set up for the course, so yeah, it's a big investment to try and shift things a bit. What about the internal assessment? So do you have any kind of key tricks, tips for particularly new and inexperienced teachers? Like you've been teaching it a while, what works, what doesn't work?
So I'd say definitely go to I just went to an In Thinking conference, definitely go to that, because you'll come away with 20 or 30 of them, which is nice, ones that work. One thing I learned recently that I didn't realize, so for extended essays, I always struggle with the chemistry extended essays. So I mean, delightfully, everyone has their extended essay horror story, and here's mine. I had a kid called Jake, and he came up with a new synthetic pathway for organic chemistry for his EE. Now, your face looks like my face, and I'm like, okay. So he's just finished his PhD in chemistry at Harvard, and he's doing postdoc work now. So it turns out, almost certainly, that, I mean, I wasn't really smart enough to know that it really was a new synthetic pathway for his EE, which got a D. I think if you get less than a D, I think you fail the IB. So it's definitely a case of like the smartest chemistry student and the dumbest EE grader / chemistry teacher. I mean, I knew it was good, but I didn't know it was new chemistry. I think I gave him a B.
Yeah, just legitimately new chemistry.
Yeah. So it turns out, and for his university project, he just made chemotherapy drugs cheaper. He made another pathway to make them cheaper. So I forgot my question.
But it all turned out good in the end.
Yeah. Also, so the tip I have for IAs and EEs, what I didn't realize is you can do the same quick experiment 3 different ways, and then comment on the different ways. So, for example, if you want to work out how much copper is in a penny, then you can dissolve it in acid and then maybe precipitate out the copper, or do colorimetry, or do a titration or something like that. So 3 different ways, 3 kind of mini experiments that you can help kids kind of get their head around, and then just compare those methods, because each of them has the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of those, I think.
That's interesting, because I mean, for me, if that was suggested, I would have been like, well, I didn't know that. I was in my head at the moment. Yeah, because I always think that there is a need to have a graph showing some kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Which in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but in that case, it's not. But I suppose there's enough chemistry in there to be able to do and talk about interesting things and demonstrate a high level of understanding.
I mean, it's wonderful if you're doing titration. So you always go a little bit too far. So there's a systematic error there. If you're making gas, it's ideal gas. It's not an ideal gas. Make it hotter. It's more ideal. The whole thing. I feel that the whole thing's going to be so much easier, especially for EE. And you can do a relatively simple, maybe thiosulfate. You can measure pH, conductivity. You can. I'm trying to think of the other one. Turbidity. Bish bash bosh. It's changed the way I'm going to do it.
That the kind of IA tip there raises an interesting point. Like I've this year kind of swayed back from kids trying to do kind of super wild stuff to try and do the basics really well, instead of
basics.
Going up. Kind of. I feel there's value in, even if it's stuff that's done commonly, doesn't really matter. Do simple really, really well, and you can still score highly. But actually, what you're suggesting there is something that's not been on my radar. That's another way to do something interesting. It doesn't have to be overly complex, but it's a different approach entirely to numbers on a graph at some point.
And since nobody knew about it at the conference, you've got something fresh, and I really think that the conclusion evaluation, you can really get into that and get a lot of points. There we go.
Yeah, definitely, which is now 50% of the new IA
So that's
criteria.
my advice. Go to a conference or try and get a list off it. Hey, email me, I'll give you a list, of ones that work.
Yeah, that's actually, I've taken a bit more of a prescriptive approach. I've just started the IA process, in fact, midway through for my current year ones of the new course. We do it in the first year. And actually, I've had some success, certainly in terms of time efficiency, of giving a big list of all the kind of reactions of interest that we've covered in the course, and maybe some that are slightly beyond the course, and said, you're welcome to choose whatever you want, not on this list, but have a look at this list first and maybe see if anything jumps out at you as accessible. And it's cut down hours of time back and forth, kids coming in like, I'm going to kind of solve climate change and stuff. And it wanders away from the spirit of kind of open-ended investigation, but actually in terms of the practicalities of taking 21 kids through the IA in a timely manner, it's been quite a game changer for me this year. So that's
excellent. I might use that
something
myself.
that it's just a little more prescriptive, but still they're getting time to figure out exactly what they're going to do and quantities and whatever. But it's just cut out a lot of time, wasted time really, where they're coming up with big, totally inappropriate ideas.
I had 33 this year. So, that was...
Is that over that's a couple of classes?
2 classes, SL, HL. And, there's probably maybe 20 experiments maximum any school could do that's IA worthy, unless you kind of go home and play with stuff. So, we got there in the end. I had 4 the year before, so I was kind of spoiled.
It makes life a little bit easier, doesn't it? The other thing, do you have any experience with kind of secondary data simulation software, database IAs?
I think that's I can't see how a kid could really even do that honestly. If you're going to do like the bond angle of halogen or alkanes or whatever, you could run the simulations, or 100 other people have done that and it's online. Or if you're going to do the melting points and boiling points using 3 different databases for the alkanes, I find it extremely unlikely that anyone's going to sit down and peck through when there's multiple sources. The database ones, I don't know how. I don't know. I think it's just too easy for the kids to shortcut it. And the simulation ones they don't really like, because all you're doing is revealing the underlying code of the simulation. So that's another one they get a little bit. Yeah. And so you have to do a real one and a simulation and then talk about it. But then, hopefully this new model is a bit better. This personal engagement, I'm fascinated. My favourite one is my grandfather's an alcoholic, my father's an alcoholic. I've always been fascinated by alcohol, and then some oxidation of alcohol. Do you have a favourite? One?
I've had one about a family cow and the kids' interest in the amount of casein protein in milk before, which was
because of the cow.
Kind of a nice story, but it's ultimately a complete lie.
We tell them it's not an anecdote about hydrogen peroxide. It's just your process and then iterating to a better experiment. There was another silly one I had. I can't remember now. I told the kids my trigger word is fascinating. So if you tell me you're fascinated by any chemistry, automatically in my head I'm like, nah. And so some of the kids didn't understand what a trigger word was. I meant trigger word bang, and they're like, trigger words bang, 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 woohoo! So then a bunch of them put fascinating in. I'm like, no. Actually, I just think my looking back at the kids I taught in the last few schools, the best advice for IA is do a good first draft. That's kind of universally the biggest problem that I've seen is a first draft that's 1 page and then there's nothing else.
It's difficult to make significant improvement if you're only getting a few comments on half a page of work, right?
Yeah. Part of me, when I'm on my 33rd IA and I see the kids missed out the conclusion evaluation, I think, but then I'm like, so I go, no, I'm going to have to read at some stage. They're going to have to do it. Anyway, that's my little bit of advice there.
Yeah. Any other kind of tips that kind of stand out from your years of experience? How do you make sure people are, I don't know, pointing the right direction or have the kind of right skills included in what they're doing?
So everywhere, without exception, that I've worked, the jump from grade 10 to grade 11 is a big jump. It's a big old jump. I've taught, except for maybe GCSE, I still have a fondness for that. I haven't taught that for a couple of decades. but I felt the jump there was smaller. NYP, NGSS, the spirit of inquiry. I mean, I'm not against inquiry, but IB chemistry doesn't have that much inquiry. It's a lot of knowledge and applying knowledge. And so I'm finding that the feeder courses at the schools I work at are legitimately more interested in inquiry at the expense of knowledge. And so it's a big jump to chemistry. It's a big old jump to chemistry. Perhaps not for English or history, but it is for chemistry. I like my IGCSE. I know people say it's too knowledge-based, but I kind of liked it. I like the practicals. I like the big format of the papers. I like the easy ones and the hard ones. And it made me think.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, be interesting to talk about exams. Again, you've had lots of experience kind of taking kids to and through exams. What kind of things have you learned over the years in terms of preparing kids for exams specifically?
I saw someone made a spreadsheet in a quiet moment where they logged all the A's, B's, C's and D's of like 20 years of IB chemistry. And A is like 25.2%. So that's part of my advice, is if you're not sure, choose A. What I did do, just for a multiple choice technique, a couple of schools ago, I actually finished, I had a little bit of time, which is unusual for IB Chem. And so I took out the questions and I just left the answers for multiple choice. And I said, just try it. Just use exam technique to try. You should get a 1 because that's just guessing. But try it. And the average was 2 point something from my recollection. So you can not even see the question. You can have a decent stab at the answer. If you've done enough of their papers, you know their little tricks. You know what's going on.
That's really interesting.
And one kid got a 3, which could have been happenstance. But she went on to Cambridge to do physics and chemistry, so she did know her stuff. She got a 3. That was awesome. Actually, I had a kid cheat on an IA, and we had to take out all of his experiment, and he got a 3. So sometimes I'm not quite really. I mean, what are you going to write about? I'm fascinated by my father's alcoholism.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by alcohol. So it's weird. One thing, so I think past papers is the key. The IB has a definite style. That's why the specimen was so scary for me. The past papers, you thrash through them. And so all my tests are past papers. All my reviews are past papers. So the kids really get the flavor of it. And I teach to the test, which is kind of heresy. But, I mean, they need this grade to get to college. And so it's IB. So let's get you a good grade. Anything else, I think, is a bit of a disservice. And the IB test is reasonable. So if you understand what's on the test, you understand chemistry. I mean, isn't that how they put it together? Isn't that their big hope?
Yeah. So it's kind of, just basically at the end of or towards the end of the course, you're just hammering past papers, basically.
If there's time, just hammer them. And some of the kids are like, I'm bored. I've seen this. And I'm like, you're bored of doing the questions? You recognize them? Fantastic.
Yeah.
I want you to go, oh, this one again, that one again, the Haber process again with equilibrium. I can't believe it. Yes. Good. You're bored. You can do it. Now do the exam.
Yeah.
Never darken my door again.
Yeah. And I guess that you're kind of giving multiple choice questions without the question. If they're at the point where they really have an understanding of the style of those questions, you can, I guess, use reason to kind of find, well, what's the odd one out here? What kind of questions do they tend to ask? It's quite a good indicator of, do they really know how these questions kind of look? Because there are kind of patterns in the types of questions that appear.
Often there's one distractor that you can remove. Occasionally it's the right answer. But if it's like 1, 2, 10, 100, that's probably not 2, is it? They're trying to mess you around with the ones and the zeros. Anyway, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wonder for your tests, like kind of unit tests and stuff, you're doing the same. You're using past paper questions
exclusively
entirely for those.
Back to 1999, back to the last millennium.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And I guess actually most of those questions are still valid.
Yeah. If you know what you're doing, it's literally the answer schemes back then is some guy down the pub with his mates just scribbling the answers in the answer booklet and then annotating each other's work. It's delightfully charming. Those old marks.
Yeah.
Different now. It's a different time.
Yeah, and actually, I think you've got a bunch of videos which are going through what you're kind of sitting the papers effectively going through, which are super useful, particularly when you're maybe kids are on study leave or whatever. Hey, by the way, here's someone who knows what they're doing, going through those questions. I think that's super helpful for yourself as well as all the other teachers, right? That's quite an important thing for them to be able to access.
So I can, those take a long time, like a paper 2 higher level. That's 8 hours at least to work them out, work out a way to do it clearly. To cut out the swearing, things like that. Honestly, I'm like, I can't believe I have to erase it all again and do the last 5 minutes and then edit them and stuff like that. And I read somewhere if I have my little bald egg head in the corner, it's easier for kids to process. So then I got to kind of brush my hair and blow my nose and try and get my head, and then I have to move the head around because I'm right over where my head is. Yeah, it's a minimum 8 hours for one of those. Oh.
Yeah, hey, that's quite a shift.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there now for eternity, or until YouTube eventually becomes defunct, if it does at any point.
Well, so I had a friend that did the papers, and he actually showed the papers, and the YouTube shut his channel down. No ifs, ands, buts, no warnings. He logged in one day, and it was gone. He did the bio papers. It was a few years ago. So there's a bunch of people who go through the papers like me, but they show the paper, which is kind of... Actually, that's how I met James initially, because I emailed him. I said, hey, Jimmy, they're going to bust you. And then you won't even know it. You'll log in and you're gone.
He told me that story. He was the first guest on this podcast and mentioned that story.
I watched that. Yeah.
And he took heed of your advice. Unfortunately, he's not behind bars at the moment.
Well, so a lot of the learning platforms put my stuff behind their paywall, which is a bit cheeky, because you could ask me that. I mean, ask me. Don't just do that. Well, it's nice to be appreciated, but cut me a slice of that sweet.
Certainly, I'm sure there's some complex legalities behind that you could probably pick apart a little bit if you needed to. But yeah, it's flattering that they're there in the first place, I suppose.
Yeah, somewhat. But I got offered a free. We see where this story's going. I got offered like a free month for a platform I won't mention. I logged in and I'm like, it's like 20 of my videos here. You're charging me to watch my own.
What's your own stuff? Yeah,
I did in my own basement. That doesn't make any sense. Cheeky. I got $200 out of them for it. It's not much.
It's not nothing. Also, they kind of raised the point. I noticed on your YouTube channel that you actually kind of donate a bunch of money from.
Yeah.
It sounds like that maybe the videos, tutoring, the merch and stuff, of which I have received a couple of T-shirts in my time. What's the story behind that?
I haven't. So someone put. There's a picture of me trying to test the alcohol in my breath in an ethanol breathalyzer, and I didn't take the cap off, so I almost had a stroke trying to blow vodka breath into it. And so some kid said, "Someone's selling T-shirts with your head on it, Mr. Ford." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, they're not." So I went to the website, and sure enough, for $60, I mean, they can't. So I just cut and paste his picture off of his T-shirt. I put it on Teespring. I don't even sell one every 6 weeks. And the mugs, I made a mug, which is my teacher's so lazy, all he does is show which Thornley videos on a Friday. I don't think I sold one of those. I thought that was quite clever. Anyway, look,
oh really?
So it is what it is. But because the UN sponsored me, the United Nations sponsored me, I feel obliged as well as happy to make donations to the United Nations and stuff like that. I bought homeless guys lunch and stuff. I'm sure he appreciated that too. But it's nice to have a little bit of money to just give around, and it doesn't hurt that much. But yeah,
sure.
It's a little bit of guilt
it's a nice
as well.
thing to do.
I feel a little bit guilty. I've taught in private schools all my life, so I feel could I be doing more good teaching 100 Somalian kids chemistry who probably would benefit more. But I am where I am. It is what it is.
Sure, yeah, and you're finding a way to give back to other people in a slightly different way, but that's...
A lot of teachers say they find it helpful because, that's the resource I was missing when I was stumbling around in the dark at the beginning. It's just somewhere where I could go and someone might try and explain it to me. I've tried to be that guy for the next generation.
Yeah, fair enough. I wonder then, I'll kind of move towards some little quick fire questions to finish.
Yeah,
are there any
final
things you want to mention that I've not really mentioned? Are there any final kind of pointers that maybe we haven't come across that would be helpful for people new in the IB chemistry world?
I think in terms of being a new teacher, you kind of got to find your teacher personality, that you can watch other teachers teach. You can't, if you start to use their personality, the kids will rump you right away. So you've got to find that character. You've got to find that mask. Now you can be the good-hearted, grumpy guy. You can be the ebullient, praiseworthy person. And schools need all of them. If they were all like me or all like the guy next door, it would be a disaster. You've got to mix and match up. So you've got to find your personality. And once you've done that, what I found has helped now, there was a wonderful study about colonoscopies. And so if you, just before the end of the colonoscopy, it's like a famous psychology study, just before the machinery is removed, you just leave it there, and the doctor walks off, has a cup of tea and comes back again. So it's exactly the same procedure, but the end isn't unpleasant. It's kind of like a slow come down from that. And it turns out, I think it's called peak end or something like that. If you can give someone really nice, a nice little experience at the end, that's why comedians save their best jokes for the end. And a nice little experience coming in. If you can buttress your lessons with two clever little things, then everyone's happy. So, for example, I did a 4-hour high-level chemistry review a couple of weeks ago. That's brutal. So at the end, had some. This is back in the 90s, so the IB can't do anything about it. I screenshotted a couple of papers that I graded from the 90s, and some kids had drawn Stewie, that Family Guy character in the benzene rings, and some kids had said, "Dear Mr. Examiner," they'd written me a little poem. Someone, I swear you could see teardrops on the paper. It's kind of chromatography on the ink. So I collected these things.
Yeah.
And some guy spelt taste testy all the way through his answer. It was just very confusing. It was a biology section. And so I had this little kind of like bundle of fun at the end. And so it was lucky. My boss walked in at the end of this 4-hour marathon, and the kids was laughing. And I thought that was quite well timed. So I buttress. I teach 10% faster, and I have like a 5 minutes at the beginning and like a 5 minutes at the end where I just talk about science in the news, sciencey stuff. So this week I had the kids bought me M&Ms, one M&M for every minute of extra teaching I did for them. So I've got this massive kind of bowl of M&Ms. And they had brown ones in them. And I told them the classic story that Van Halen, the rock band, whenever they went to an arena, they said, take out the brown M's from our big bowl of M&Ms. And I asked the kids, why would you do that? The brown ones give you cancer. I'm like, well, let's think about that. Did the brown ones? Would they be allowed to sell them? And then they're like, they're just jerks. Well, no, they had a good reason. The brown ones taste funny. Don't they all taste the same? And like, the blue ones are better. No, whether it's placebo, it's all the same. So it's nice, a little sciencey story kind of unraveled from this. And it turns out that, do you know the ending to that? Why Van Halen insisted on a big bowl of M&Ms with the brown ones removed? So the kicker is that when you show up and you look at the bowl, if you see brown ones, you know that they have not done their due diligence. They've not prepared, they've not read the contract. So you can immediately see that you're dealing with people who might electrocute you on stage or might mess up the fire exits. So then you get the M&Ms and smash it against the wall. So it was just a thing that came to me today.
Make a big scene.
But the kids have trouble with theory of mind, so I tell them, imagine you're a rock star. And you come in and you see the brown M&Ms. What are you thinking? And you can see their little brains. God, and I'm like, I wouldn't be happy. Why wouldn't you be happy? Anyway, so that was just today's one. And at the end, I did something, I can't remember, something stupid. I found tidal bores. We were talking about how in Britain we have the tidal bore because we have to talk a bit about estuaries. And we talked a bit about that. And I said, anyway. So that's my big tip. If I could go back in time, I'd say get something fun at the beginning, at the end. Begin happy, end happy.
Yeah, so they leave the classroom with a nice taste in their mouth.
Yeah, they forget about the unpleasant taste of me drilling them in orgochemistry for 4 hours, and they just left with a cheeky little smile. Yeah, I think it's called peak end experience. There we go. Yeah,
the peak end rule, I think, is how I've heard. Yeah, it's kind of like a psychology thing. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. That hasn't been debunked yet. That's in like the 30% of psychology that might still be true.
Might stick around. Yeah, I quite like if I've got a few minutes left at the end of a lesson, little periodic table bingo. grid 3x3, maybe it's P block, maybe it's D block. It also is quite good because it keeps familiarizing them with the different elements and the kind of more obscure ones that might throw them at some point. But yeah, it's nice to have a kind of a light finish to the lesson so they leave with a smile on their face.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I teach a little faster to give me that space. So I have to explain to the people I'm teaching with, team teaching. When they walk in the first 5 minutes, they're like, get on with it, Thornley. At the end, they're like, you finished early? No, I didn't. I guess I finished fast. It's all good. I got it.
Yeah.
Actually, so the kids, I did that for 2 years with a group of kids. And then they entered the European science competition and they won it because all the questions were like these weird little thought experiments. So, I mean, I choose it to be causal. But I think that helped them to win it. What other little quick? That was
fair enough.
Quick fire. Let me quick fire faster next time. Is there any more? I'll be quicker.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. What's your most and least favourite topic to teach?
So I cut electrochemistry at university. Dr. Phillips, God rest his soul. I couldn't stay awake. I couldn't stay awake in it. I found it so boring. And so now my punishment is to teach electrochemistry every year for 50 years. So electrochemistry, I can do it now, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, difficult one to grasp. What about most favourite?
Most favourite, maybe stoichiometry, because you can weave in the labs. I like it when there's right answers. I like it when you can see if you've done a good job. And so I do a whole bunch of little stoichiometry labs, kind of the classic magnesium oxide, but then burning iron wool, it should get heavier, trapping a piece of magnesium under a burette, and measuring the volume to work out the unknown metal. Just a whole bunch of stuff like that, and then gradually introduce it. One small revelation I had, I used to teach stoichiometry at the beginning to scare kids off to biology and environmental science. But I realized actually now if you can actually teach stoichiometry, which I eventually can, they actually quite like it. So they're only scared off by my poor teaching of it for the first however many years. So that's a bit of a revelation.
Yeah, fair enough. It can be very practically involved topic, which can be a really good thing, right? Okay, next one. What was your most memorable demo or practical failure? Now I know you've kind of mentioned your oxidation of alcohol. Are there any kind of any others that jump out at you?
One that I did that was quite good was I got this garage mod, this program that I used to animate the death and the explosions of the zombies and whatnot. I actually animated the kids to be molecules. So you can actually, if you had the right equipment, get the kids to be carbon dioxide or water. And so that was kind of handy when it comes to the vibration patterns. Carbon dioxide did this and the water does that. So that was quite nice. The software is actually obsolete now. That was one I quite liked. Another one I did was, I don't do it anymore, aqua detox. So there was this claim that if you put your feet into salty water and then run a voltage through it, you can see videos of this online, all this brown and this green stuff starts coming out, the toxins from your body, And then, I mean, it's just iron electrodes in salty water with electricity. The green stuff's chlorine or ions, and the brown stuff is iron. So it's all garbage. So I set that up for the kids.
Yeah.
I had little Petri dishes with salt water, and I tell them, you know what? I've got toxins, and I'm actually going to weave through my finger. So I plugged in the iron electrodes, and if you stir it, it turns yellow. And I'm completely straight-faced. I'm like, there we go. I've taken the toxins out, I've taken the urine out. And you know what? And I can't remember. I think I added a bit more salt and then it will turn brown because you get the iron 2 ions. And I'm like, excuse me, just doing a number 2 here like that. And so I'd be complete. And I'd shown a video of people online who've paid hundreds of dollars for this. And I said, okay, investigate that. Straight-faced, investigate it. So you change the electrodes, it goes blue because it's the copper. And if you don't put the salt in, it doesn't work. But the problem is it kept blowing the power supplies if you weren't careful, the water would start to boil because it's basically a kettle that you've made. So that's a fun demo I do now, but I don't know the kids do it. There's still broken power supplies in Prague, I think, from that.
Yeah,
that was a fun one.
And a couple of missing risk assessments somewhere as well.
Yeah, the old days,
Yeah,
I've only had one kid. I've only had one kid have an accident in all these years, which is someone got concentrated sulfuric acid on them, and they didn't notice, and it gave them a bit of a burn. It's a bit of a scar, but that's it. I've been cautious. I mean, I used to detonate hydrogen balloons and thermite reactions, but still do those. But I've been lucky, but cautious as well. But count my fingers.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible. Final question then: who have you learned the most from in becoming a better teacher?
So I struggle to come up with an answer for this. Not because it's been so many, but it's basically teaching is such an insular job. I had lunch with people, but I know go into my room, I shut the door, and it's just me and the kids. And so basically, I learned from the kids' responses, from just kind of asking them and judging how they're doing. And again, I should have. It's too late now because I actually know what I'm doing. But I should have sat in on those expert teachers, the world's first IB biology teacher, for example. I should have sat in on him.
Yeah, quite esteemed company.
Yeah, I should have done that.
Well, Richard, thanks so much. So we're about to hit the hour mark, and I really appreciate you making the time to have a chat.
Hey, no trouble.
Your voice it's kind of tracked me through my career, whether or not you knew about it. But in those early days of trying to work out what I was doing, your videos were a kind of a safe haven for me to find someone explaining something in a relatively kind of humorous and informative manner. So I appreciate your time in the hundreds of videos you've made over the years.
I'm getting better at taking compliments. Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's
appreciate
a British kind of defense mechanism to anything flattering. But it's worth saying while I've got you in a kind of captive position. Yeah, I've appreciated your work. And hopefully we'll meet, chat or something again at some point in the future. It's been really great having you on the podcast. IB exams coming up in the next couple. In fact, tomorrow, right? Is that when the IB kids are sitting down?
Yeah, I think they're asking me questions that I can't answer now. The smart ones. I'm like, you've reached the pinnacle. I can't do it. You can't do it. Off you go. Be free.
Yeah, it's time to release them into the wild. But all the best with those exams. Not that you can do much from this point. But it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. So thanks very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.